Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Lauren Feldman, and I'm here with Gene Marks. Hello, Gene.
Hello, Lauren.
How you doing?
I am doing good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
I've been traveling all over the country. I was in Denver speaking to a whole association. Actually, it's a company that their dealer network that has overhead doors, like garage doors.
Uh-huh.
And then I went all the way down to Alabama and spoke to the Southeastern Vendors Association, Vending Machine Association from Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, Georgia. Fascinating stuff.
What are you hearing out there on the road?
So it depends on the industry that you're at. I mean, the overhead door people are reliant on construction and real estate and home improvements and all that kind of stuff. And so they've been challenged, over the past couple of years. The vending machine people are doing okay. That association's been around. It's just a different. It's an absolutely different perspective on the U.S. They're running profitable companies. The vending machine people. These are good people. You say a prayer before the meeting starts. You go in, you do your thing. I like to talk about regulations and things impacting the industry, except because I'm speaking to the people from the southeastern part of the country. There really aren't a lot of regulations in the States that impact them.
So I've heard.
Yeah. People from like New York or California or Illinois, that's a different story. But so it's just a different perspective. But anyway, so people are, which I'm seeing across the country at all these different associations there. And I just wrote a piece for The Guardian that kind of summed up like 7 different small business surveys that are basically saying that most small businesses around the country are muddling along, no, spectacular growth, just speaking in general, and still a lot of uncertainty out there, although that uncertainty is starting to diminish a little bit, which is good news. And I'm seeing that when I'm on the road too.
So last week, Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon, had some things to say about AI and the impact it's going to have on headcount at his business and at many others. I know you have some thoughts about that.
I really do. So Andy Jassy came out and made an announcement about how Amazon is going to be cutting employees, and it's because of AI. It's going to be, and he's giving advice to employees how to keep their jobs, which I'll touch on soon. And that kind of comes on the heels of a lot of big companies. There was a report in CNBC recently, and also on the Wall Street Journal about how many big companies are shedding staff, particularly white collar workers. Microsoft just announced 6,000 layoffs. This past week as well. So it's going on across the country. People are pointing their fingers towards AI, and the tech companies are pointing their fingers towards AI. I'm not so sure it's AI yet, Lauren. I really don't. I feel very, very certain that AI is going to be a factor in job losses in the near, not too distant future. But I think all the job cuts that we're seeing right now from these large companies, tech companies, I think they're cutting the fat. It's really what they're doing. They're kind of staying under the cover of AI and a slowing economy and tariffs and all of that, and saying they got to tighten their belts, and they're getting rid of people that probably would have been on the chopping block regardless of AI or not.
So you're kind of saying some of it has to do with that uncertainty you were talking about.
It is. It's uncertainty, and it's also just overhiring and just performers underperforming people as well. And I don't know, man. Like I can't tell you. Like I do work with some big corporations, and I can't tell you how many meetings I go on Zoom calls where there's like 14 people on a call. And I think to myself, like, really, do all these people really? What are they all doing? These people, and. I always thought that large companies, they like to take advantage of the news and use it to their advantage to cut people when and blame it on something else when really it's just a matter of them cutting the fat. I mean, Microsoft's recent round of layoffs is mostly like sales and admin and those types of people. So I think that's important. So, this is a small business podcast. So, how does this affect small business? I mean,
that was my next question.
Yeah. There's a couple of takeaways here. First of all, laying off people is not good for small business in general because people, employees at Microsoft or any of these companies, they go to their pizza shops and their dry cleaners and their local restaurants. And if they're out of work, they're not going to be spending money at those places, while there that uncertainty. So I do think that has an indirect impact on a lot of local small businesses when you hear these companies laying people off. On the good side, it certainly puts people into the talent pool that can be hired. I mean, we've got such tight talent as it is that it's great to see that. It's not great to see, but it's it might be a help for small businesses who want to be hiring. So that's also good. And I think it's also just though a warning of things to come. Though the big tech companies fell over themselves over the past year or two, saying that AI was not going to replace people and it's just going to make people more productive. And these very same companies that were saying that are now firing their own people and saying it's because of AI. So I think we need to read the memo here and know that this technology, this AI technology, you are a fool if you are firing somebody because you think you can replace them with AI. That's a joke. Because AI, anybody will tell you who uses it, and you got to agree to this, Lauren, right? I mean, it's unreliable, it's inaccurate, it hallucinates, it's incomplete. You're crazy if you replace people with AI right now, but it's going to get better. And I think that's the
don't know that I do agree with that.
Why do you say that?
Well, certainly the hallucinations you're talking about exist, and that's a factor. And certainly anybody who just takes AI work product and releases it to the public is a fool. I certainly agree with that. But some of the stuff that it can do and some of the things I'm hearing about, the ability to create a website, somebody who doesn't know anything about coding can now create a website themselves. We're talking about vibe coding and this whole movement in that direction. I don't know if it's exactly here today, but it's certainly coming, and I just don't see any way that that's not going to cost people jobs.
Oh, there's no question about it. But that's exactly what I just said. I don't think it's a near-term thing, but a right-away thing. But it's in the not-too-distant future.
I think maybe next week, not too distant
future. I don't
future.
think it's that soon. No? But I am telling you, don't be duped by this stuff because you give the example of creating websites, and yeah, there are a number of AI platforms and applications that say that they will create websites. Before you come to a conclusion on that, you just give it a shot yourself. You try. Go ahead. Take one of those platforms and try to create a website for 21 Hats.
Well, I've spoken to someone who did it. I had somebody actually on this podcast, Alan Pence,
right,
who talked us through a website that he created in 1 hour on a tool called Replit that I'm sure you're familiar with.
Sure.
And he told us, while we were talking on the podcast, he told us to go to the website and check it out. And,
right.
It's not the most advanced website I've ever been on, but it worked.
That's the point. I understand that it worked to a certain extent, but it's still not ready for prime time. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like Microsoft Copilot has, as the ability to create a PowerPoint presentation. And you're like, wow, this is unbelievable. It'll create a PowerPoint right from a document. So you do it and you start playing with it and you're like, okay, it did. It created a PowerPoint presentation, but it's really a shitty presentation. And I'm spending all this time going through and fixing it. And then I ask it to do stuff and it still doesn't understand what it wants me to do. And I'm, still spinning around. There was an article just 2 weeks ago in the Wall Street Journal. It was two tech reporters from the Wall Street Journal. They dove into Google's new video application, Veo, to create a movie, and read the article and they'll tell you like, this is, it is not what it's exciting and you can see where it's going, but it's not creating anywhere near a finished product. It is, there is still a lot more work that needs to be done. And that gets me back to my original point about it's not there yet, this stuff. You see where it's going. It's exciting, but it's not ready for prime time. None of this AI stuff is yet. And people that are getting rid of their employees. That's why I'm saying I don't know if I really believe these large tech companies are replacing their employees with AI right now.
Right.
I think they're using it as a cover. But I do think that in the next couple of years, there will certainly be many applications that can be used to replace. I'll give you another example. You wanted to say something. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say there are a couple of things that I would want to ask you about. One is I keep hearing the same line from small business owners. It's kind of become a mantra, I think, where they are saying, hey, listen, especially talking to their own employees, AI is not going to take your job, but we are going to use it in any way we can. And we have to figure out what processes we can improve with the use of AI, because it's not going to take your job, but it is going to take the job of people who don't figure out how to use it.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a certain amount of sense, but I think it goes a little bit too far, because I really do believe a lot of people are going to lose jobs when AI keeps getting better.
Well, I could not agree with you more that a lot of people are going to lose jobs. I mean, we don't see, a lot of blacksmiths around today. It used to be in the 19th century, people would crawl up on light posts in Paris and turn off the street lights and turn them on every morning. There used to be a big industry, Lauren, in the early 20th century in England of knocker uppers. Are you familiar with those?
Knocker uppers. It
knocker
sounds
uppers. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I know what it sounds like, and I know where your mind's going. I know you too well. But no, it's not. A knocker upper was somebody who would tap on people's windows in the morning to wake them up because there was no alarm clocks. And there are apparently thousands of them throughout Europe, people that were doing this. This was their job.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. I used to work as a business reporter for the Columbus Dispatch in Columbus, Ohio. And even in Columbus, very few people know this, but Columbus led the world in the creation of everything you need to run a horse and carriage before cars came along. I think it was the Columbus Carriage Company. The name was something like that. And they were experimenting with engines, and they might have, Columbus could have been Detroit, except there was a big flood that wiped out the company. But this was, before Henry Ford. This was like the 1910s. In 1980, I found a guy who was he had his own little one-person foundry, and he was still making the fittings for a horse-drawn carriage. He had one client. Do you know who his one client was?
Go on.
Budweiser, the Clydesdales.
The Clydesdales. Right. That's great.
So some of these businesses do manage to hang on, but obviously not the way they once were.
I agree. I mean, and by the way, I made the comment about blacksmiths. There are still blacksmiths around in certain limited use and good for that. But anyway, like to your point, yeah, there's no question that AI is going to be replacing these jobs. And I can see the writing on the wall right now. The agents that are just starting to be rolled out this year, like Microsoft, their Dynamics agents are going to qualify sales and confirm orders and automatically send out orders and reconcile bank accounts and take in cash receipts and match them with invoices. All the stuff that humans are doing right now. That's what Microsoft is promising with its agents. And then there are all these web agents that are being rolled out for testing by Google and Anthropic that are again, is somebody sitting in front of a computer or a workstation. The web agents just can take over and start clicking through, booking a flight on Expedia just on a command, going out and searching the internet and finding contact information of 50 companies that are in your industry along with email address, just doing it. Clicking through and doing that is it's a web agent, on your behalf. All that stuff's going to replace people. There's no question about it. And a couple things I think are going to happen because of it. First of all, this is not going to happen right away. I mean, it gets back to what I said earlier. I mean, small businesses are looking to increase their productivity. Your best bet as a business owner to increase your productivity is to lean into a chatbot or two, like ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, pay the monthly fee and use it a lot. Like, instead of paying a lawyer, to spend 8 hours to create a policy, you use a chatbot to create the policy and then have the lawyer review it to make sure that it's right. Instead of having your HR person create a job description, use the chatbot to create the job description and then have the HR person review it to make sure that it looks okay. That's productivity, And I'm also telling my clients, as shitty as some of this Gemini and Copilot stuff is right now, it's getting better. So I'm like, man, you are at the point, if you own Office or you own Google Workspace, you should absolutely be hiring an outside consultant, a Microsoft or a Google consultant, to train your people on how to use this stuff better and more effectively. And I truly believe, particularly because we're so short staffed in our businesses, that once your people get over the fear of AI and they start using it to create PowerPoints or analyze spreadsheets or compose better emails and all that kind of stuff, they will be more productive and doing a better job. And I still don't think businesses are going to be getting rid of people right away anyway, because we need these people. And by the way, I think when you're doing things better and more productive and have a little bit of breathing room, I think that creates a better work balance and a work life for a lot of our employees, and I'm optimistic about that.
So long as they remain employed.
So long as they do. I don't think you're going to see these mass layoffs occurring right away.
Well, maybe it starts with people not being hired. I mean, we've seen some CEOs talk about the CEO of Shopify said that no longer can anybody be hired unless it's been demonstrated that AI can't do the job.
And I hate that, by the way. I hate when CEOs of companies make those kinds of announcements. It's so arrogant and it's so ignorant, because now you're like, what do you think if you're an employee at Shopify? You're like, Jesus, this guy will fucking replace me in a second. He's not even hiring people unless you can prove AI can't do it. I mean, it just sends out such a bad message culturally to your employees. So I don't know. It is going to be, look, I've been in the technology industry for more than 20 years. I've seen the growth of e-commerce. I've seen the growth of the cloud. I've seen the growth of mobile, and now we see AI, and everything thinks it's going to completely change the universe. It's going to make things better and make people do better work and better jobs and more productive. But I don't think you're going to see mass layoffs and mass hiring anytime in the near future, because this stuff just still needs a lot of work. It really does. Even they talk about robotics. There are a lot of companies making Boston Dynamics and Atlas Robotics are making some really cool stuff, and they're integrating AI technology from Google and other companies. You go on their websites, you see some of the videos. It's like, wow, but they're still just years away of being the same kind of capable humans. So they can add and they can help. But replacing these humans are going to be, I think we're a ways off from doing that right now. People just need to be so afraid, and they need to lean into this stuff to do their jobs better.
All right. I want to ask you about something else. I don't know if this is anything, but I keep seeing this commercial for a company called ServiceNow, and it features the actor Idris Elba, and he's walking through workplaces and talking about this new technology they've got that it connects networks, it does all this stuff. I can't figure out what the product is. and I'm curious whether it's something that small businesses should be aware of. Well, do you know what's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, ServiceNow has been around for a while. They have a number of products. Their main focus has been the IT help desk. Okay, so this is a big company. Their customers are larger companies, and what those companies do is, if you have a help desk and you need to create tickets, and you need to fix device issues, a problem with a printer, a problem with security, a problem with connection. ServiceNow provides you with a lot of applications to help you manage those problems, search those problems, and then they're introducing a bunch of AI tools now that are hopefully automating that process as well, so that the IT help desk can be more efficient and more productive and answer the questions faster. Now, they also have a CRM component. They have applications for human resources too, but it's really more designed for, in my opinion, for mid-size and larger companies to use. I don't believe it is a small business, type of product that should be considered. So the one thing that I think is interesting about ServiceNow, though, is they're doing what a lot of companies are doing. They're introducing AI agents. I mentioned before Microsoft Dynamics agents. It's the same thing. Every big tech company, are rolling out new AI features, and a lot of them are using agents to perform tasks in the background. And I just have to tell you, if you're a business owner, if you're using QuickBooks or you're using, I don't know, Epicor or Sage or Dynamics or whatnot, Salesforce, you need to be reaching out to those vendors and understanding what AI agents that they are rolling out for their products And then you should be using them and leaning into them and getting training for your employees to use this stuff as well. This is no different than any other features that have been rolled out in the past for software. AI is now a large component of those features. And these software companies are investing hundreds of millions of dollars in this stuff. It's our job to understand them so we can use them better.
Do these AI agents fall into the category of what you described before as something that's really promising, but not quite there yet?
100%. And with all due respect to ServiceNow, I'm sure their AI agents are just great, but I think that they're probably nowhere near what they would be or what they will be just a few years from now. And the best example I can give you is, any type of software that comes out in a version 1.0, it's going to be inadequate and buggy and lacking a lot of capabilities. But as the software gets better and used and better trained and expanded, obviously it becomes, more accurate and more reliable. So I do think, though, you should be asking your vendors about these things. I think you should be checking it out. I think you should be testing it. I think you should be, paying for some training, get your employees to use it as well, just in a limited way. You're not replacing anybody with it, and you're not relying on it for your core operations, God forbid. But you should start getting yourself familiar with these AI tools, because as they get better and better, they will have a significant impact on your business.
Are there any AI tools that you yourself are using right now and you're excited about?
All generative AI, and I'm using a lot of Gen AI, like ChatGPT, for example. There is not a decision I make in my business now, a contract that I do, even financial statements, even with clients. I upload financial statements and I'm asking ChatGPT and Copilot, by the way, to give me their insights on these financials, anything that I'm missing.
You upload the financial statements of your clients?
Yeah, I do. And then
do they know that?
No. Now that you bring it up, I should probably let them know that. That's a very good point. But I do share. I had another client where they have an employee handbook, and I uploaded that, and I said, "Give me your thoughts on it." And I got news for you: the thoughts that it gives me back, it can be embarrassing if you don't pay close attention. Like ChatGPT reviewed a client's employee handbook and said that it needed certain things in it that it already had. It didn't recognize it. It didn't see it. And then when I double checked it, I had to go back to ChatGPT and say, "Can you check again? Because it looks like it does have this." And then ChatGPT would reply back, "Oh yeah, it does. Sorry." And then they say, "This happened to me, by the way." I mentioned before, I have a piece this week in The Guardian where I looked at small business surveys. So I used ChatGPT to help me with my research. And I said, "Review these surveys and tell me if you see any common themes or whatever. What are you finding?" And it would give me wrong themes. It would be like, this survey mentioned that X% of small business owners felt this way. And I actually have to go and I'm checking the survey, because you got to fact check all this stuff. And it's wrong. It's like wrong numbers, or it wasn't in there at all,
I used it to create a LinkedIn post. I put a transcript of a podcast in and said, "Turn this into a 600-word LinkedIn post that I can use to highlight the podcast. And please use actual quotes from the people talking on the podcast."
Yep.
It absolutely made up the quotes. Not one of the quotes existed.
Yeah, so this gets back to the beginning of this conversation, right? There is no way you're relying on AI for your core operations. There's no way you are replacing your employees with AI when it can't even perform a simple task like the one you just mentioned yet. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of the stuff that it does is great and super helpful. And you asked, what am I using? I am leaning on it. I'm looking at it, but I still, with a grain of salt, I look at it. You know what I mean? I tell you where it's also going, which I find interesting. I mentioned this to you before we started recording. Like, I am on Twitter, X, for better or for worse. And Twitter quietly rolled out this feature that I've been using a lot. They've got their own AI called Grok. It's just similar to ChatGPT, but it's being trained on Twitter's data for their large language model. And now on every single tweet that you see on Twitter, next to the timestamp, there's a little symbol for the Grok symbol. It's like a little circle for Grok. Try clicking on it, because what it does is it attempts to do like an AI reasoning of the tweet to try to fact check it or to give you some context or background to it. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but I can see where it's going, and that kind of excites me as well. We've all been so unreliable with with all of this stuff and the news that we're getting. Here, AI is trying to be used to give some type of a balanced, and I'm not saying they succeed every time, but it's getting there. It's getting better. It's exciting. And that's the kind of AI that I like to use in my life, but it is nowhere near something I'm going to rely on or replace an employee with. Forget it.
Interesting. Anything you're working on, Gene, that we should be looking for this week?
Well, Lauren, yeah, I'm actually going to write about this topic as well. And then also I'm writing a piece for Entrepreneur just on, I haven't done this in a while, just sharing some travel thoughts, reducing costs when you travel as a business traveler. So, again, I haven't written one of those in a few years. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing that.
That sounds good. Gene Marks is a CPA who writes weekly on small business for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, The Chicago Daily Herald, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor. Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Lauren. I really appreciate it. And we will talk again next week.
Sounds good. Have a great week, everybody.